Captain Lee Hanna had been monitoring deep space frequencies for 3 years, without hearing anything more interesting than cosmic background radiation. Tonight was different. The emergency beacon cut through the static like a knife, broadcasting on frequencies that shouldn't exist according to human science. "What the hell is that?" she muttered, adjusting the receivers. The signal was strong, desperate, definitely not human. Lieutenant Park Daho rushed over from his station, sweat beading on his forehead. "Captain, you need to see this. The computer's been working on translation for the past hour." He handed her a tablet with scrolling text that made her blood run cold. The message was a plea for help from something called the Valen Federation. According to the transmission, they were a peaceful alliance of 17 different species who had never known war until 6 months ago. Now they were dying. The Scarix Empire had swept through their territory like a plague, consuming everything. And their path? Listen to this part, Daho said, pointing to a section of the translation. "They're describing weapons that can literally eat planets, not just destroy them, consume them. The Scarix use some kind of technology that breaks down matter at the molecular level and converts it into energy for their ships." Hannah felt sick. The numbers were staggering. 43 billion beings dead in the first wave alone. Entire civilizations erased in ours. The Valen had tried to negotiate, tried to surrender, tried to run. Nothing worked. The Scarix didn't want prisoners or territory. They wanted everything dead. "They're down to their last system," she whispered, reading the final part of the message. "Kepler 442. That's only 23 light years from here." The door to the command center hissed open, and Admiral Kim Jae-won strode in. Even at 65, he moved like a man half his age, his military bearing evident in every step. He'd fought in the Mars Rebellion, survived the asteroid belt conflicts, commanded humanity's first deep space exploration missions. If anyone could handle first contact, it was him. "Report," he said simply. Hannah transmitted the data to his personal display. She watched his expression change as he read, his weathered face growing darker with each line. When he finished, he was quiet for a long moment, long until the Scarix reached the Valen's last stronghold, he asked. "Based on their movement patterns, maybe for days," Daho replied. "Sir, there's something else." The Valen described the Scarix as unstoppable. They've conquered half the galaxy over the past 50 years. No one has ever successfully fought them. Jae-won nodded slowly. "What's our fleet status?"
8.
212 ships ready for combat operations, Hannah reported. "But sir, we're talking about an empire that's been conquering star systems for decades. Our entire fleet might not be enough to even slow them down." The Admiral walked to the observation window, staring out at the stars. In the distance, Earth hung like a blue marble, peaceful and unaware that its children were about to make first contact in the worst possible way. "You know what makes humans different from most species?" he asked, without turning around. "We evolved on a world that's been trying to kill us since the day we learned to walk. Ice ages, volcanic eruptions, predators, diseases, natural disasters. Every single challenge made us stronger, more adaptable, more stubborn." He turned back to face them. "These Scarix have been conquering peaceful civilizations. They've never faced a species that learned to fight by surviving on a death world. They think they're apex predators, but they've never met anything like us." Daho looked uncertain. "Sir, with respect, we don't know anything about their technology or capabilities beyond what the Valen told us." "Then we'll learn fast," Jae-won said. "Send word to every ship in the fleet. Emergency recall. I want every captain, every crew member, every Marine ready for immediate deployment. This is what we've been preparing for our entire lives, even if we didn't know it." Hannah felt a chill run down her spine. "Admiral, we could be flying into a trap. This could be the end of humanity." Jae-won's smile was cold as winter. "Captain, someone out there is committing genocide, and they sent out a call for help that reached us. That makes it our problem. Besides, if these Scarix are as dangerous as the Valen claim, they'll find Earth eventually anyway. Better to meet them on our terms than wait for them to come to us." He headed for the door, then paused. "And Captain, start working on battle plans?" I have a feeling we're going to need every dirty trick we've ever learned. As the Admiral left, Hannah stared at the alien message still scrolling across her screen. Somewhere out there, billions of beings were dying, and humanity was about to announce itself to the galaxy in the most violent way possible. The stars had never seemed so cold. The sight at the edge of the Sol system would have made any peaceful species flee in terror. 212 human warships hung in formation like a pack of predators ready to hunt. These weren't the sleek, elegant vessels that civilized races preferred. These were brutal machines of war, designed by a species that had clawed its way to the stars through centuries of conflict. Commander Cho Minho stood on the bridge of the flagship Indomitable. Watching the final ships join the formation, the massive dreadnought stretched nearly 2 kilometers from bow to stern, its hull scarred from the Titan Station siege and pocked with meteor impacts from the Outer Rim campaigns. 6 heavy railgun turrets dominated its superstructure, each capable of hurling tungsten slugs at a significant fraction of light speed. "Final ship count, sir," reported Communications Officer Kim Jisoo. 212 vessels ready for jump. 43 dreadnoughts, 67 cruisers, 58 destroyers, 30 carriers, and 14 assault transports. Minho nodded. Studying the tactical display around him, the bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency. These weren't fresh academy graduates. Every officer and enlisted person in the fleet had seen real combat, whether against pirates in the asteroid belt or separatists on the Martian colonies. "Analysis complete on the Valen intelligence, sir," called out Lieutenant Commander Park Sun-ho from the tactical station. "The Scarix rely heavily on energy shields and plasma weaponry. Their ships are designed for long-range bombardment and overwhelming firepower." "Typical civilized warfare," muttered Sergeant Major Yoon Houn from her position near the Marine Command console. She was checking her assault rifle for the 3rd time, her scarred hands moving with practiced ease. "Stand back, shoot pretty. Lights at each other, surrender when your shields fail." The Marine commander had fought in every major conflict of the past 15 years. Her left arm was cybernetic, lost during the mining colony revolt on Ceres. Her right eye was artificial, courtesy of Martian rebel shrapnel. She was exactly the kind of soldier other species would call insane. "That's why we're going to surprise them," Minho said. "They've never faced an enemy that treats shield failure as the beginning of the real fight." Through the viewports, teams of engineers could be seen working frantically on the ship's exterior. They were installing additional armor plating and modifying weapon systems based on the limited data from the Valen transmission. Aliens had mentioned that Scarix shields were particularly effective against energy weapons, but had never encountered kinetic projectiles moving at relativistic speeds. Chief Engineer Oh Min-soo's voice crackled over the intercom. "Commander, we've finished the railgun modifications. The magnetic accelerators are now running at 110% capacity. The tungsten penetrators should punch through their shields like tissue paper." "What about the boarding pods?" Houn asked. "Ready to go, Sergeant Major. Each pod can carry 12 Marines in full combat armor. They're designed to punch through enemy holes and deploy troops directly into hostile ships." The concept of boarding actions had died out among galactic civilizations thousands of years ago. Why risk soldiers in close combat when you could destroy enemy ships from a safe distance? But humans had never forgotten the lessons learned in Earth's oceans, where submarine crews had sometimes fought with knives and bare hands in flooded compartments. "Sir, incoming transmission from Admiral Kim," Jisoo reported. The Admiral's face appeared on the main screen, broadcasting from his command ship Defiant. Behind him, the bridge was a hive of activity as officers prepared for humanity's first interstellar war. "Final preparations are complete," Kim announced. "Intelligence suggests we have maybe 6 hours before the Scarix finish their bombardment of the Valen homeworld." "Projections. What's our approach, sir?" "We jump in at the edge of the system and accelerate toward the planet at maximum burn. No fancy maneuvers, no attempts at stealth. We want them to see us coming." "Sir, that sounds like suicide," protested one of the younger officers. Kim's smile was cold. "Son, every civilized species in the galaxy thinks the same way you do. They see overwhelming odds, and they surrender. But humans? See overwhelming odds and we get angry. That's what's going to save those aliens down there." The final checks were completed across the fleet. Pre-flight sequences on their compact but deadly interceptors. In the Marine quarters, soldiers checked their weapons and armor one last time. In engineering sections throughout the fleet, crews pushed reactors to their absolute limits. "All ships report ready, sir," Jisoo announced. Minho took a deep breath. Somewhere 23 light-years away, billions of innocent beings were dying while their world burned. In the most violent way possible. "Signal the fleet," he ordered. "Jump in 30 seconds. The stars outside began to stretch as the faster-than-light drives engaged. In moments, they would emerge into a war zone where the odds were impossibly stacked against them. But they were humans, and humans had never been known for accepting impossible odds. The indomitable, carrying Earth's children toward their destiny among the stars. The moment the human fleet materialized in the Kepler 442 system, every person on every bridge fell silent. What they saw was beyond their worst nightmares. The space around the Valen homeworld was a graveyard of burning ships and debris. Massive Scarix dreadnoughts, each easily 3 times the size of humanity's largest vessels, hung in orbital formation, like metal vultures. "Jesus Christ," whispered Commander Cho Minho, staring at the tactical display. The Scarix fleet numbered over 300 ships, their dark holes bristling with weapon arrays that pulsed with deadly energy. Below them, the once green world of Valen Prime was a hellscape of fire and smoke. "Sir, detecting massive energy signatures," reported Lieutenant Commander Park Sunho. "Those ships are using some kind of planetary bombardment weapon. They're literally cooking the surface." Through the viewports, they could see streams of superheated plasma raining down on the planet like molten rain. Cities that had stood for thousands of years were being reduced to glass and ash. Civilian evacuation ships, small and defenseless, were being picked off one by one as they tried to escape the dying world. "Admiral." Kim's voice cut through the horrified silence on the fleet channel.
"Oh.
"All ships. This is what genocide looks like. Those are innocent people down there, and we're the only thing standing between them and extinction." The Scarix had noticed the human fleet's arrival. Their massive ships began turning toward the newcomers with predatory grace. Energy readings spiked as weapon systems came online, and the space between the fleets began to crackle with sensor sweeps and targeting locks. "Sir, incoming transmission from the Scarix flagship communications officer," Kim Jisoo announced. "There. Put it through," Minho ordered. The main screen flickered to life, revealing something that made several bridge crew members step backward. The Scarix commander was a nightmare made real, a towering creature with multiple arms, its exoskeleton gleaming like polished metal. Its voice was a harsh clicking sound that the translator rendered as cold, mechanical words. "To unknown vessels, you have entered a designated harvest zone. Withdraw immediately or be consumed." The Scarix Empire claims this system and all biological matter within it. Admiral Kim's response was broadcast on all frequencies. "This is Admiral Kim Jae-won of the Human Earth Fleet. We don't negotiate with genocidal monsters. All ships attack pattern Omega. Show them what Earth breeds." The human fleet erupted into motion like a pack of wolves attacking a herd of elephants. Instead of maintaining formation and exchanging long-range fire like civilized species, they accelerated directly toward the enemy at maximum burn. The Indomitable led the charge, her railguns already spinning up to full power. "Target their flagship," Minho ordered. "All weapons. Maximum rate of fire." The first salvos from the human fleet were devastating. Tungsten slugs traveling at nearly light speed punched through Scarix energy shields like they weren't even there. The aliens had never encountered purely kinetic weapons at such velocities. Their shields, designed to disperse energy attacks, were useless against solid projectiles. The Scarix flagship shuddered as dozens of railgun rounds tore through its hull. Atmosphere vented into space in brilliant streams, and internal explosions lit up its interior like a deadly fireworks display. But instead of retreating to assess damage like any sane species would do, the human ships pressed their attack. "Boarding pods away," announced Sergeant Major Yoonhound from the Marine Command Center. Ships like bullets, each one aimed at damaged sections of Scarix vessels. The concept was insane by galactic standards. Deliberately flying into the middle of an enemy ship to fight hand-to-hand, Captain Basura was leading the most audacious attack of all. Her fighter squadron had identified the launch bay of the Scarix command ship and was flying directly into it. The bay was designed to launch the aliens' own fighter craft, not to repel incoming attackers. "Stay tight on my wing," she broadcast to her pilots. "We're going right down their throat." Her fighter, built for speed and maneuverability in Earth's violent atmospheric conditions, danced between the incoming plasma bolts from the Scarix point defense systems. Behind her, 11 more fighters followed in a formation that would have been impossible for pilots trained and comfortable. Civilized worlds, they screamed into the launch bay at speeds that should have meant certain death. Sura pulled her fighter into a horizontal spin, her guns blazing as she strafed rows of Scarix fighters. Her wingman, Lieutenant Lee Dong-yoon, targeted what looked like fuel storage tanks. The explosion that followed lit up the entire bay. Meanwhile, the human boarding pods had punched through multiple Scarix holes. Marines in powered armor were fighting their way through alien corridors. Their weapons designed for the close-quarters combat that other species had abandoned millennia ago. On the Valen homeworld surface, the few remaining defense installations watched in amazement as the newcomers fought with a ferocity that defied all military logic. Every time a human ship took damage, instead of withdrawing to safety, it seemed to become more aggressive. The Defiant had lost her forward railgun turret, but was using the damaged section as a battering ram, literally smashing into Scarix cruisers. The Vengeance was venting atmosphere from a dozen hull breaches, but continued firing even as her crew fought fires in the corridors. "The Scarix fleet is breaking formation," reported Park Sun-ho, disbelief clear in his voice. They're actually retreating from some of our damaged ships." Minho smiled grimly as he watched a crippled human destroyer continue its attack run despite being mostly dead in space. "They've never seen anything like us before. They don't understand that humans get more dangerous when we're hurt." The battle was far from over, but something fundamental had changed. For the first time in their conquest of the galaxy, the Scarix had encountered prey that fought back like predators. The aftermath of the battle painted space in both victory and horror. Burning Scarix hulks drifted among the debris, while human rescue ships moved between the wreckage like angels of mercy. The contrast was striking. The same hands that had just delivered death with ruthless efficiency were now desperately working to save lives. Dr. Han Kyungmin had never performed surgery on an alien before, but that wasn't stopping him now. Valen refugee ship's medical bay was packed with wounded survivors, their blue-green skin pale from blood loss and trauma. The Valen medics watched in fascination as the human doctor adapted battlefield surgical techniques to their physiology. "Your cardiovascular system is remarkably similar to ours," Kungmin muttered, working to repair damaged arteries on a young Valen child. "The main difference is the secondary heart near the liver. We can work with this." The Valen chief medic, Dr. Valian, observed with growing amazement. "Your medical knowledge is ... aggressive. You treat injuries that we would consider fatal." "We have to," Kungmin replied, not looking up from his work. "Humans get hurt a lot. Our whole planet is basically a training ground for emergency medicine." Throughout the system, similar scenes were playing out. Human engineers were working alongside Valen technicians to repair damaged ships, while Marine medics treated wounded civilians with the same intensity they'd shown in combat just hours before. On the surface of Valen Prime, the contrast was even more dramatic. The same Marines who had boarded enemy ships through hull breaches were now pulling survivors from burning cities. Sergeant Major Yoon Houn directed her troops with the precision of a seasoned disaster response team. "Johnson, get that plasma. Cut her over here. We've got people trapped under this rubble," she barked. Martinez set up a triage station in that cleared area. "Move like you mean it." The Valen survivors watched in bewilderment as these violent warriors transformed into rescuers. One elderly Valen approached Houn as she coordinated the evacuation of a collapsed shelter. "Why do you help us?" he asked through the translator. We are strangers to you. Hound paused in her work, wiping soot from her face. Because someone called for help, and we answered. That's what humans do. Back in orbit, Admiral Kim was meeting with the surviving Valen leadership aboard the Indomitable. The alien officials looked like they'd seen ghosts, which, in a sense, they had. They'd witnessed their certain death transformed into impossible victory by creatures they'd never imagined could exist. Valen Admiral Theron was tall and graceful. His species evolved from herbivorous herd animals on a peaceful world. His large eyes held an intelligence shaped by millions of years of cooperative evolution.
Oh.
When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of ancient knowledge. Your species fights like the old legends, he whispered, his words carrying a reverence that the translator couldn't quite capture. The stories say the universe occasionally births warrior races from Deathworlds. We thought they were myths. What do these legends say? Kim asked, genuinely curious. That when the galaxy faces its darkest hour, predators emerge from worlds of nightmare to restore the balance, species forged in fire and violence, but with hearts that burn for justice. Theron studied the human admiral with eyes that had seen too much death. We never believed such beings could exist. The moment of philosophical reflection was interrupted by Colonel Jang Hyanwu's urgent voice over the intercom. Admiral Yu? Need to see this intelligence data immediately. Kim and Theron hurried to the tactical center where Hyunwoo was analyzing captured Scarix communications. The Korean colonel's face was grim as he pointed to the holographic display showing ship movements throughout the galaxy. Sir, what we fought here was just a forward reconnaissance force. The main Scarix armada is already en route over 3,000 ships, including their planet-killer dreadnoughts. He paused, letting the numbers sink in.
Ow.
They'll be here in 48 hours. The bridge fell silent. Even with their recent victory, humans had lost 37 ships and suffered heavy damage to most of the remaining fleet. Against 3,000 Scarix vessels, they wouldn't stand a chance in a conventional battle. Then we don't fight conventionally, Kim said simply. Admiral Theron, I need to know everything about this system. Every asteroid, every moon, every piece of debris that can be weaponized. What followed was the most intensive 48 hours in human military history. The combined human-Valen force worked with desperate efficiency to transform the Kepler 442 system into a death trap. Human engineers taught their new allies the art of turning ordinary objects into weapons of mass destruction. Chief Engineer Ominsu led teams of both species in converting asteroids into kinetic bombardment weapons. The principle is simple, he explained to a group of Valen technicians. We attach thruster packages to these rocks and aim them at incoming ships. At relativistic speeds, even a small asteroid becomes a planet killer. Meanwhile, Valen scientists were helping humans understand exotic technologies that could enhance their weapons. Dr. Valian worked with human physicists to develop shield-penetrating rounds that used Valen quantum manipulation techniques. Your railguns are crude but effective, the alien scientist noted. But if we can phase shift the projectiles at the moment of impact, they'll pass through energy shields as if they weren't there. Fighter squadrons practiced attack runs through asteroid fields while Marine units prepared for the largest boarding operation in human history. Captain Bei Sura led joint training exercises where human pilots taught Valen flyers the art of suicidal courage. The key is not to avoid death, she explained to a group of nervous alien pilots. The key is to make your death count for something. As the countdown to the arrival of the main Scarix fleet continued, something remarkable was happening. Two completely different species were learning to work together. Combining the peaceful innovation of the Valens with the violent creativity of humanity, the result would be something the galaxy had never seen. Before a battle that would reshape the balance of power among the stars and announce humanity's presence as a force that could not be ignored or defeated. The stage was set for legend. The space around Kepler 442 had been transformed into the galaxy's most deadly maze. What looked like empty void to the arriving Scarix fleet was actually a carefully orchestrated death trap. Every asteroid had been fitted with thruster packages and guidance systems. Every moon had been hollowed out and packed with explosives. The humans had turned an entire star system into a weapon. Admiral Kim stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the enemy fleet drop out of hyperspace. 3,000 Scarix vessels materialized in perfect formation, their dark hulls blotting out the stars. Each ship was a monument to conquest, scarred from battles across the galaxy. At the center of the formation hung the command dreadnought. World Eater, a ship so massive it had its own gravitational field. "Sir, enemy fleet is deploying in standard conquest formation," reported Lieutenant Commander Park Sun-ho. "They're not even bothering with defensive measures. They think we're IE. Already beaten?" Kim smiled coldly. "Then they're about to learn why you never underestimate a cornered human." The Scarix commander's arrogant voice echoed across all frequencies. "Primitive Deathworlders, your defiance ends now. Surrender, and your deaths will be swift." Kim's response was broadcast throughout the system. "This is Admiral Kim Jae-won to all ships, human and Valen alike. Remember, we're not just fighting for victory. We're fighting so this never happens again. For Earth, for Valen, and for every peaceful species these monsters have murdered. Make them pay for every inch." The battle began not with the elegant dance of civilized warfare, but with the brutal chaos that only humans could orchestrate. The first wave of weaponized asteroids slammed into the Scarix formation at nearly light speed. Ships that had conquered 100 worlds were cut in half by rocks that had been drifting harmlessly in space just days before. The World Eater itself shuddered as a modified comet, packed with human explosives and guided by Valen technology, punched through its shields and detonated deep in its hull. The massive ship's armor held, but the explosion sent shockwaves through its entire structure. "Phase 2, execute," Kim ordered. The human fleet emerged from hiding positions throughout the asteroid field like wolves from a forest. But these weren't the same ships that had arrived 2 days ago. Working around the clock, human and Valen, engineers had created hybrid vessels that combined the best of both technologies. Human railguns now fired Valen quantum phase projectiles that could pass through energy shields. Valen shield generators had been modified with human redundancy, systems that kept them active even under catastrophic damage. Captain Park Min-ji commanded the destroyer Retribution, her ship already scarred from the first battle. When 3 Scarix cruisers converged on her position, she made a decision that would have horrified any civilized commander. "All hands. This is the captain," she announced over the ship's intercom. "We're going to ram the lead cruiser. I know it sounds insane, but trust me. Abandon the aft sections and get to the forward compartments. We're going to make these bastards remember us." The Retribution accelerated directly toward the largest Scarix ship, her remaining railguns firing continuously. The alien vessel's shields flared and failed under the concentrated barrage. At the last second, Min-ji activated the ship's self-destruct sequence. The explosion that followed was visible from 3 star systems away. The Retribution and the Scarix cruiser vanished in a ball of nuclear fire that took 2 more enemy ships with it. But Park Min-ji's sacrifice had done more than destroy enemy vessels. It had shown the Scarix something they'd never seen before. A species willing to die not just for victory, but for the principle that genocide would not be tolerated. The real turning point came when Sergeant Major Yoon Houn led the most audacious boarding action in galactic history. Her target was the World Eater itself, the command ship of the entire Scarix fleet, while the main battle raged around them. Her strike team of 50 Marines punched through the dreadnought's hull in specially modified boarding pods. "Remember your training," Hound broadcast to her team as they fought their way through corridors designed for beings twice their size. "These things have never faced humans in close combat." To show them why that's a mistake, while the Scarix crew was. In panic, their exoskeletons were tough, but human weapons were designed to punch through the hardest materials. Their multiple arms gave them advantages in manipulation. But human combat doctrine was built around facing superior numbers and winning anyway. Hyun's team fought, deck by deck, toward the command center. When they encountered sealed blast doors, they cut through them. When faced with automated defenses, they overloaded them with electromagnetic pulses. When the Scarix tried to flood sections with poison gas, the humans simply sealed their armor and kept fighting. The Scarix commander watched in horror as the tactical display showed his fleet being systematically destroyed by an enemy that should have been crushed hours ago. Human ships continued fighting even when they were bleeding atmosphere. Pilots flew attack runs in fighters that were held together by emergency patches. Marines fought in conditions that would have killed any other species instantly. "This is impossible," the commander clicked to his subordinates. "No species fights like this. You should have surrendered when we demonstrated our superiority." That's when Sergeant Major Hound kicked down the door to the command center. The Scarix bridge crew froze in terror as the human Marine stepped through the smoke, her armor scorched and her rifle aimed at the command console. Behind her, the surviving members of her strike team spread out with military precision. "Attention, Scarix fleet." Heon's voice echoed through the ship's communication system. "This is Sergeant Major Yoon Houn of the Human Marine Corps. Your command ship is under our control. You have 30 seconds to order a full retreat, or we detonate the charges we've placed throughout your ship." The Scarix commander looked at the small device the human had placed on his control panel. His species' superior senses could detect the exotic matter signature of human explosives. The device was real. It was powerful enough to crack the World Eater in half. Faced with the impossible choice between death and defeat, the Scarix commander made the first surrender broadcast in his species' history. "This is Fleet Commander Zektar. Retreat to hyperspace immediately. Do not engage the Deathworld species. Repeat, do not engage." The surviving Scarix ships fled the system in complete disorder, their formations shattered, and their morale broken. As they jumped to hyperspace, their communications were filled with warnings about the terrifying species they had encountered. Throughout the galaxy, the word spread there was a new power among the stars. It fought like nothing the universe had ever seen. As the smoke cleared and the rescue operations began, the Valen survivors looked upon their human allies with expressions of awe and gratitude. They had witnessed the birth of a legend, the emergence of a species that would reshape the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The humans had announced their presence to the cosmos in the most dramatic way possible, not as conquerors, but as protectors. The galaxy would never be the same. The end.